I have my pattern paper folded into two. The first thing I'm going to do is mark out my waist measurement divided by 4 and mark it out here. If you've never drafted a skirt pattern, well, this is your chance to learn. And the next thing I'm going to do is add a 1-inch dart for this. Even if we're not going to be needing the dart for it, you still have to put it in check. And then go ahead to add your sewing allowance of 1 inch or 1.5 inch. After which you're going to go ahead and mark out the difference from your waist to your hip. For this person, the difference from her waist to her hip is 9 inches. After which you'd mark out your hip measurement divided by 4 plus a sewing allowance of your choice. After which I'm going to use my French curve to create a curve from the waistline to the hip line. And now I'm going to mark out the difference from my waist to my knee line, which is basically it could be 22, it could be 21, it could be 23, depending on how tall the person is. And I'm just going to go ahead to draw dotted lines and then put that together. The next thing we're going to do is take our hip measurement, like measure what you have right now on your hip measurement plus the sewing allowance, and go ahead and mark it down onto the knee line, but remove 1 inch. So for instance, if your hip measurement divided by 4 is 11 and then you added 1 inch or 1.5 inch, by the time you go ahead to mark it down at the knee line, you would remove at least 1 inch or 1.5 inch depending on your preference. Next thing you're going to do is take your straight rule and make a slant line from your knee line all the way down to the edge of the paper. Remember, this is a mermaid skirt, so we have to make it as wide as possible. At the knee line area here, I went in again by 1/2 inch because I felt that the 1 inch I had removed earlier was just not enough for me, and I wanted this to be really snatched at the knee line area, because if you can see in the picture, there is an opening, so that part has to really go in. It has to show its form, and that's why I went in more by 1/2 inch. And I'm just going to go ahead to cancel that line at the edge, the initial 1 inch that I did, so I do not mistake whatever I'm going to cut afterwards. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead to label this. So I'm just going to mark here and call it center front, basically, because that's what it is. And if there's any other thing that you need to put in order for you to remember what it is, if you want to still use the pattern afterwards, you can go ahead like I am and write out mermaid skirt for this, and that's what I'm doing right now. Okay, after we're done labeling, we're going to go ahead and cut. Now that we have this, we're going to go ahead and open it up, and you can see the shape of the skirt already coming together. The next thing we're going to do is go ahead and create the lines for the pleat. Now, whether you want your pleat to be on the left or right hand side is dependent on you. You can go ahead and flip the paper if you want to, and it will give you left or right hand. But what I'm going to do here right now is mark out 4 different lines using the 4 centimeter rule. So you want to just go ahead and turn the back of your tape and you'll see the 4 centimeters there. So I'm marking out 4 centimeters in 4 different lines, or for 4 different lines. And then at the other side, I'm going to mark out 9 centimeters, 9 centimeters, 8 centimeters, 8 centimeters. That's 4 different lines, but with 9 at the top 2 and 8 at the bottom 2. I'm just going to go ahead now to number this so we do not get confused. The next thing I'm going to do after this is go ahead to use my straight rule. You can use your hip curve if you want to, but I'm going to go ahead and use my straight rule to connect these dots together. I want to remind you that you do not have to rush if this is your first time ever draping or basically doing something like this. You do not have to rush. You can sit with the tutorial and watch it till you understand what you're watching and what you're learning before you go ahead to practicalize. Because if there's one thing that I learned in my journey of learning from others online is that you do not have to rush. You really do need to take your time. Now we're going to cut into this. This method is called the slash and spread method. And what we're doing right now is slashing. But when you're cutting, keep in mind when you're cutting, you do not get all the way to the end of the paper. You see how I'm cutting? I'm not cutting it off. I'm just cutting it enough to have like a snip at the end of it. That's what you want to do. Now that we're done with slashing, the next thing to do is spread. We're going to place this on a new pattern paper and we're going to go ahead now and spread this. There's something you have to keep in mind in the process of you spreading. For me here, I'm going to be using the same 4 centimeters that I used to slash it at the first instance. Okay, I'm still going to be using the same 4 centimeters. Now if you want to use more than 4 centimeters, there's something you have to keep in mind. Number one, you have to have enough pattern paper, and number two, your fabric also has to come in question. Do you have enough fabric that would take when it's time to transfer it onto your fabric? These are questions you need to ask yourself. But for me here, I'm going out on every single pattern and going out by 4 centimeters like I did for the other one, and I'm also going ahead to basically spread and hold it down using my masking tape. You can also use a sellotape if you do not have a masking tape, but this is what we're working with right now. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is come at the edges here and create more like a pyramid. This helps you know where each edge of the spread is, so when you go ahead to transfer to your fabric, it would make it easier. After I am satisfied with the triangles slash pyramids, I'm going to go ahead and number this, and you see that it comes out 4 as well. You can go ahead, like I said before, to increase it to 5, 6, or 7, and when you number the pyramids or the triangles, they will also come out as 7 or 5. Here I'm going to extend the bottom part of this. Okay, you want to make sure that your pattern paper is flat. Okay, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm using my hand to basically smoothing this before I go ahead to hold it down with my tape, and it makes it so everything comes out very flat. We do not have anything like rising at any point in time. And then we'll go ahead to extend this old pattern onto the new pattern, but would add 1.5 inch. You can add 2 or 3 inches to this. Again, it depends on you and your preference and your fabric as well. I'm now going to extend this by 1.5 inch, and I'm just going to go ahead and mark that all the way through. Use my straight ruler to make sure that all the lines sit where they're supposed to sit before we carry on with the remaining things that we need to do. And at the edges here, you see how I'm taking my ruler and I'm basically also extending that into the new 1.5 inch line that we just created. As we've seen on the inspiration picture, there is an opening on the side. Now, the side that you want it to be open at is dependent on you. For us here, we're going to be doing it on the left hand side. Now at the hip line area, we're going to be going down by 4 inches. You can do 5 or 6 depending on how high or low you want the opening to be at. Okay, and then at the center part, We're going to come out by 4 inches as well on the center part of this. I'm going to use my straight rule to first make like a straight line across, and then I'll make dotted lines. So basically I want to use dotted lines to kind of create a curve before I then create like the proper curve. But I'm using my free hand to do this, and you see how neat this is. That is the power of dotted lines. Don't forget to extend those lines into your new pattern paper, okay? There's something that I did not do here that I wished I did, because it would have helped a lot. Okay, so before you go ahead to cut, before you go ahead to put any kind of scissors on your pattern paper, you should now go ahead, now that you have everything in check, you should go ahead and extend all these new lines by 1/2 inch. I'll say that again. Now that you have all these new lines, before you go ahead to cut, you should extend all the new lines by 1/2 inch on your new pattern paper before you go ahead to cut. Now that we're done cutting that, you can gently detach the old pattern from the new one. And voila, this is what we have for our new pattern. If you got to this part of the video, I really want to say thank you, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. This is the fabric we're going to be using, and this is called a satin silk. This fabric will test your patience. Whether you're a beginner or a pro at it, it will test your patience, but there are ways around it. You can use a fabric holder, and as I say this, I realize that so many people do not have that. So you can use whatever heavy objects that you have in your house to hold the parts that you are not working on. That way you can focus on cutting and not dragging your fabric back and forth. Okay, another thing that you notice is our fabric is not on fold. It's actually like placed on just one piece because we're only cutting the front of this. Like our pattern paper, it's also not on fold. The next thing you want to do to really help yourself is go ahead to use your pins to hold your pattern paper down onto your fabric. What I'm doing here is adding that 1/2 inch allowance that I told you to add on your pattern paper. That's what I'm doing here right now. If you got to this part of the video and you did not add your 1/2 inch at the part where I asked you to add it, you can just go ahead and add it on your main fabric. It's okay. Nothing is spoiled, nothing is ruined, everything is fine. Breathe and add your 1/2 inch on your fabric like I'm doing right now. And also extend the, like I said at the beginning, you can do either 1.5 inch, 2 inches, or 3. So when you want to go ahead now to transfer onto your fabric, you don't have to start adding like hemming allowances all over again. You can just work with what you have. Okay, so for me here I did 1.5 inch, so I would go ahead again and extend my hemming allowance by 1 inch. I did not show that here, I don't know why, but I did that. I just add 1 inch at the hem allowance and I left it at that. So now that I have that, you see that the only parts that have my 1/2 inch extension is at the parts where we have our pleats, and on the other side you can either add 1/2 inch or just add 3/4 inch, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut. On the fabric, I'm also following the pyramid, or should I say triangle lines, that we had done earlier in order for us to know what goes where. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut the other part out, and we will go straight into pleating. Now that we have that, we're going to go ahead to pleat. We would normally pleat on a dress form, but I wanted to show you that you can also pleat on your table. So you're going to go ahead to pleat this, and you can see that those sharp edges are helping in the placement of where things need to be, and then you use your pins to hold this down. I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same action for all the other pleats that we need to do. Pleat here, use my pin to hold it down. Pleat here, use my pin to hold it down till I get to the last one. You do not need to rush in this process. You don't need to rush, because you just don't need to rush. Take your time. Make sure your work is coming out really neat before you go ahead to pin whatever it is you need to pin. Your main focus should be on the parts where you have the sharp edges. You can actually leave the other parts to be, but on the sharp edges where you need to actually pleat, you can just pleat it and use your pins to hold them down. But in this case, I'm pleating both the sharp edged area and the side area. When you're done using your pins to hold it down, you want to go ahead and use your needle and thread to hold this down before you go ahead to iron. For me, what I did was the needle and thread trick, and then I went ahead to use hemming gum to hold this flat, because I wanted it to be flat but still have its pleats like involved in the picture. So that's what we have right now. Okay, I hope you get to try this out, and I hope yours comes out as beautiful as mine did. Y'all, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Don't forget to turn on your notification bell so you'll be notified when I post a new video. Don't forget to love yourself, because I love you. Have a beautiful day or night, whichever it is you look for. Bye.